The air was thick with anticipation the moment the humans stepped foot on the Teal'ari homeworld. Earth's delegation stood rigid before the shimmering spires of the embassy, each pillar glowing with an ethereal violet hue under the unfamiliar sun. Captain Ryan Hale adjusted his collar, sweat trailing beneath the fabric, his mind racing. This wasn't just another diplomatic mission. It was the first true encounter between humanity and the enigmatic Teal'ari, and so far, things weren't going smoothly. The Teal'ari were majestic beings, their bodies bathed in bioluminescence, their large, expressive eyes capturing every emotion they felt. One of them, in particular, stood out to Ryan. The moment she entered the chamber, her towering form dwarfed the others. Her posture was impeccable, her eyes shining with a liquid sapphire glow. She was known as Illyria. Ryan fought to maintain professionalism, but his gaze lingered longer than he intended. A faint, guilty thought crossed his mind before he caught himself. Not now, he reminded himself. She was an ambassador, not just an alluring alien. But that was the challenge with the Teal'ari. They weren't just telepathic. They could hear your thoughts. And worse, they could feel your emotions. Illyria tilted her head slightly, her eyes locking with his. A soft, knowing smile curled on her lips. Ryan's stomach sank. Oh no, she heard everything. A brief step forward, and Illyria's voice was soft, but carrying that unnerving confidence of someone who understood far more than they let on. I've been informed human males often indulge in vivid imaginations, she said, her voice like a melody. I must admit, I wasn't disappointed. Ryan's mind raced. Wait, you're not offended? Illyria laughed, a sound like chimes on the wind. Offended? No. I find honesty refreshing, especially when it's so inventive. His heart raced, flustered. Inventive? You imagine my tendrils wrapping around your shoulders, she said with a playful tilt of her head, her gaze lingering. Then I wondered what they'd feel like against your skin. Ryan opened his mouth, then shut it quickly, hoping the ground would swallow him whole. You're very warm-blooded, Illyria continued, stepping even closer. I could feel the heat rising from your skin as I approached. Is that a human trait or just yours? Behind them, the summit continued, but Ryan barely registered it. Illyria's presence was overwhelming, not just physically, but mentally. He had been trained for diplomacy, for war, even for torture, but nothing had prepared him for this. Not for an alien who could read his most intimate thoughts and, worse, seemed to enjoy it. You didn't intend to offend, Illyria said, her voice steady. But you revealed a truth most humans hide. That's rare. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, caught in a moral dilemma. Still, it was wrong, he muttered. Was it? She asked, her tone soft but insistent. Or were you simply honest in a way others fear to be? The conversation turned away from the personal to the professional as the summit resumed, but Ryan couldn't shake Illyria's piercing gaze, which met his every time he dared glance in her direction. Later that evening, Ryan found himself standing alone on the embassy's terrace, his eyes tracing the strange constellations above. The cool alien breeze carried the scent of unfamiliar flowers, and his thoughts felt as alien as the stars themselves. Footsteps approached, and without turning, he already knew who it was. I'm sorry again, he said, not looking at her. I didn't mean to disrespect you or your people. You didn't disrespect me, Illyria replied, her voice calm. You were simply curious. Intrigued, even. I was a mess, Ryan muttered. You were human, Illyria said, stepping beside him, arms crossed behind her back. Her eyes, too, were fixed on the sky. In Teal'ari culture, mental honesty is valued. It's far more offensive to hide your feelings than to express them, even if those feelings are inappropriate. Ryan's breath caught in his throat as the weight of her words hit him. Inappropriate? Illyria nodded, her lips curving ever so slightly. You were admiring me. Fascinated, perhaps even excited. There was no malice in your thoughts, no violence, just curiosity. Ryan swallowed, realizing that his impulsive, unguarded thoughts had, in a strange way, been more of a bridge between them than an obstacle. You were imagining closeness, Illyria remarked, her voice soft yet probing. Ryan swallowed hard, trying to steady his thoughts. I don't usually think like that during meetings. She laughed, the sound light and playful. I would be disappointed if you did, she teased. Then, in a quieter tone, she added, You weren't the only one curious. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. He turned to face her fully, his expression one of disbelief. Wait, you mean you've thought about it? Illyria nodded slowly, her eyes glimmering with an unreadable depth. Yes, she replied, her voice thoughtful, but not with every species, not often. But with some, it's worth exploring. His pulse quickened. So, this isn't forbidden? It's rare, Illyria answered, her gaze steady. But not forbidden. It's complicated. Our biology is different. Our emotions, even more so. But connection? That's possible. On many levels. Ryan's breath caught in his throat as he watched her tendrils shift gently in the air. The faint pulse of bioluminescence added an almost ethereal quality to the moment. Are you teasing me? He asked, unsure if he was dreaming. Perhaps, Illyria replied with a mischievous smile. Or perhaps, I'm simply answering thoughts you're too nervous to speak aloud. A long pause stretched between them, but Ryan finally found the courage to reach out. His palm was open, an unspoken invitation. Illyria hesitated for a brief moment before placing her hand in his. It was warm, delicate, yet undeniably strong. The faint shimmer of her skin under the soft moonlight only added to the sensation that this was something rare, something transformative. I don't know what comes next, Ryan said, his voice honest and vulnerable. Illyria's smile softened, a quiet understanding passing between them. Then, let us learn together. The days that followed the summit passed with an unexpected ease. Illyria and Ryan worked closely on treaty drafts and negotiations, their collaboration almost seamless. She could sense his emotions, his unspoken thoughts, making the entire process smoother. Her sharp insight into his vulnerabilities made her laugh, and their growing camaraderie didn't go unnoticed. By the final day, whispers echoed behind closed doors. There was no denying the palpable chemistry between the human and the alien diplomat. As they stepped forward for the signing ceremony, the weight of history hung in the air. The crowd of diplomats and soldiers held their breath as Illyria and Ryan pressed their seals onto the crystalline accord. A ripple of applause filled the chamber. But then, in a surprising turn of events, Illyria turned toward him, her eyes glinting with mischief. Without warning, she leaned in close, whispering into his ear. I just had another thought of yours. Ryan stiffened, his mind already racing to understand what she meant. It involved me, your quarters, and one of your Earth delicacies, whipped cream. His face turned crimson, mortified. That was, Illyria interrupted with a smirk. Don't apologize. Then, without warning, she kissed him, right there in front of the entire assembly. The humans gasped, the Tilari blinked in surprise. And then, in an unprecedented turn of events, both sides, humans and Tilari alike, erupted into laughter. It was as if the walls of formality had cracked, and something unspoken had bridged the gap between the two species. Later that evening, Ryan lay beside her in the softly glowing chamber they now shared. His thoughts, though still a little chaotic, no longer troubled him. He didn't bother hiding them anymore. Illyria read them with that same knowing smile, her laughter light in the air. Again and again, she smiled, each time as though she were learning more about him, and perhaps, in a strange way, he was learning more about her.